Okay. Hi, everyone. I'd like to call to order the Finance Committee meeting of Tuesday, September 22nd. It's about 1:03 p.m. here on the Zoom platform. And present from City Council, we have myself, the chair, Liz Mealy, Bonnie Katz, and Adam Yoder, both committee members. And it looks like that's all of our esteemed council members for today. From the administration, I see Chief Killian, Joe Pavlak, and Peg Woodring, as well as Josh Warfel and Janice Frank, who are helping us run the meeting. And I don't know, I'm assuming Chief Hagan will be joining us here shortly, huh? Janice, you want to check up on that just in case?
All right, I'll call him.
Thanks. All right, the first item on our agenda today is a resolution authorizing the acceptance of fiscal year 2019 fire prevention and safety grant. Chief Killian?
Good afternoon. So resolution before you is to accept the 2019 fire prevention and safety grant from FEMA and Department of Homeland Security. The total grant award amount, the total grant amount is $51,512.03. 5% of that will be cost match provided by the city. So the total grant funding, federal funding, is $49,059.08, with $2,452.95 provided by matching funds provided by the city. This grant specifically, we're really excited about this. We were just discussing with public safety a couple weeks ago. We're kicking off the Williamsport Safe campaign. We put out a press release here last week. The Williamsport Safe campaign is going to be a multi-year effort, safe standing for smoke alarms for everyone. And our goal as a department, I'm sorry.
Chief Hagan said that he will try to get on as soon as he can. His computer died. But he
Okay, that's totally fine, Janice. I don't think it's any major rush. I just wanted to make sure it was on there. Okay, thank you, Janice. Excuse me, Chief Killian, you were saying?
No problem. So yeah, our Williamsport Safe campaign is going to be a multi-year effort to make contact with every residential property, every owner-occupied residential property in the city to do fire safety, home fire safety inspections and smoke alarm installations. And this grant will actually take us through the first year and cover our our most high-risk areas. And it'll provide funding for smoke alarms, for deaf and hard of hearing smoke alarms, outreach material, door hangers, handouts, and also overtime associated with ensuring we have the staffing we need to get to hit all the target properties, within that, in our high risk areas within that first year. So yeah, that's our fire prevention and safety grant.
Fantastic. And can you go over for me the city's contribution is a little over $2,000, it seems to me, to match about 49. And where is that coming from, Chief Killian? And was it a foreseen expense in this year's budget?
So Joe Pavlak and I have been, for the last couple of years, putting $10,000 kind of aside in our support equipment line item for potential matching funds for grants. So yeah, obviously this grant was wrote in April, so it's hard to budget exactly what we'll get grant funding, but we've been putting, Joe's been putting that money, at least $10,000 a year aside in case of matching funds.
Got it. Excellent. Questions from other members of the committee?
That's a no, Liz.
Okay, Adam, Bonnie, nothing? All right.
Nope.
This might be kind of
I'm sorry, I didn't know I was muted. No, I don't have any questions.
Okay.
I saw you, Bonnie.
Okay, then that seems pretty cut and dried. And this is money that you'll be looking for again then in future years for more or less the same purposes to get the last time.
So potentially, not necessarily. This grant was geared towards again it's demographic specific. Our lowest income neighborhoods and those at highest risk of fire has a 1-year period of performance. So I'd say that the Williamsport Safe program, our overall city program is a 4 to 5 year program. This grant specifically will help us address those highest risk through the first year. The additional years would be covered just in our the general smoke alarm program that we do with WNEP Operation Save a Life, with some partnerships from Red Cross. So
Okay.
I'm not going to say there won't be a need. We'll definitely apply for the grants, but it's not a guarantee, moving forward. This is a competitive grant process. So, this year was, we were just successful.
Okay, sounds good. Then if there are no other questions, I'll take a motion.
Make a motion, we pass this on to the full body of council with a positive recommendation.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thanks, guys. Thanks very much for joining us, Chief Killian.
you.
Moving on to item number 2 on our agenda, a resolution for authorizing the minimum municipal obligation for the year ending 2021. Mr. Pavlak, this is always a fun one.
Oh, absolutely. And it's an annual one, so we get to see it every year. Before you use the annual minimum municipal obligation for the city to fund the city's 3 pension funds, this resolution is required to be adopted by September 30 of each year and provides the minimum funding requirements for the following year's obligation and sets the number that we're required to put into our upcoming year's budget. The 2021 MMO, as prepared by the city's actuary for all 3 pension funds, is coming in at a number of $5,126,692. That represents an approximate $760,000 increase over the 2020 obligation. Looking at that, the big piece or the major contributor to that was the fire pension fund and some new interpretation of language representing how the COLA is calculated, which was determined through the grievance process. In addition to that, all 3 plans did see investment losses with the investment returns that were provided, which were 775 for the general and police plans and 725 for the fire plan. In the 19 actuarial evaluation, which this obligation is prepared from, those interest rate assumptions were all reduced by 0.25% as results of discussions throughout a number of our quarterly pension review meetings with Mass Mutual and Wells Fargo and CS McKee. I guess with that explanation, I'll be happy to entertain questions.
Sounds good. Thanks, Joe. Adam, Bonnie, do you have any questions? Is that a
No, I don't.
Yeah. So, Joe, can you walk me through why this jumped up so much? I mean, I'm assuming it's a reaction to a combination of timing as well as how the fund performed, but are you good to explain some of those more intricate details?
Sure. There's 2 components to the obligation. The first is your normal cost. The normal cost are what our active participants, or the normal cost is the annual number needed to fund the future obligations for active employees. So me as an active employee, I'm going to have a future pension obligation. The normal cost incorporates what my future benefit is and allocates it over the time that I'm expected to be working till I hit those pension requirements. The second piece is the amortization payment. The amortization payment takes those investment losses. Your actuarial valuation assumes that you're going to earn, as I indicated, 7 3/4 or 7.25%. If you don't meet that benchmark, then you have to fund those losses and you're amortizing those over a period of time. So those two components come up to what is. The goal is to always fund it enough through both of those components. So eventually you're getting where it's a zero, that you're fully funded and you don't have to meet a normal cost obligation. But the plans right now are in the low 80s. So we have some work to do. We've been working to try to, progress through that and to get to a better funding position each year for each evaluation.
The low 80s, is that a result of this year, or I thought it was higher?
It depends on which funding status you look at. There's the Act 205 funding status is the numbers that I'm giving you. And then there's also a GASB funding status, which we report in the audit currently.
Gotcha.
They're based on the Governmental Accounting Standards Board's calculation of that status. So there's a difference in how they're done. I like looking at it from the valuation standpoint and the Act 205, the state requirements. So those are the numbers, 81 for fire, 82 for general, and 85, 86 for police.
Okay. And again, if this is repetitive, sorry. So $5.1 million, if I read this right, the state will give us some towards that. Whatever's left is what we actually have to fund. Is that correct?
That's correct. Every time this year, or the beginning of every year, we certify active participants, those that aren't retired or those that aren't in the drop program. We certify that number to the state, and then typically around this time, the number hasn't been released for 2020 yet. The state releases a unit value. For that unit value, be it 5,000 or whatever the number will be, for every unit for the general category that we submit and certify, they'll give us 1 unit. So for every one we certify, they'll give us $5,000. For police and fire, we get 2 units for every one that we certify. So if we certify 1 police officer, they'll give us $10,000. And that's part of that 1.3. We don't exactly know what the number will be this year. It's not a fixed cost. So we're waiting to hear, and maybe I'll hear by Thursday, but I think that they set the number last Friday, but no one seems to have any releases on it yet.
Okay. Yeah, no, I appreciate that. From diving into this and then looking at our current budget, the numbers don't quite line up, and that explains exactly why. So, and I'm hoping that continues. I know this is a very, very odd year. I suspect that I don't know the intricacies of Harrisburg to the point where they may adjust, what that amount of money is, but know if that would actually happen or not.
That number, and I don't know the specific source, but it's based on an insurance fund of some sort.
Okay.
So I think that it's something that occurs regularly and may not be impacted by everything else that's going on, but I'd have to look back to exactly find out. But there is a specific funding source for it. It's not part of their general budget per se.
Okay. Cool. No, I appreciate the information, and thanks for diving into this.
Yeah, thank you, Joe, for the more in-depth explanation. Just to go over a couple of points that Joe made last year, at the request, I think primarily of council, we made the decision to reduce our earnings expectation. Remind me again what we reduced them to, Joe. It was by like 0.25% across.
It was
all
a 0.25%
funds,
for all 3 of them. Police and the general plans were both at 7.75. They're now down in the 19 valuation to 7.5. And fire was at 7.25, and they're now at 7.
Exactly. And that was predicated on the fact that if we set our earnings expectations too high, obviously, and the stock market tanks, which it has this year, then we're leaving ourselves more room to get in the hole. And so that was a decision that we arrived at last year, and that we knew would drive the MMO up this year. But that said, it was, it seemed like a wiser way to budget moving forward. It was predicated on the recommendations of our financial advisors. as we say every year, that, this is a $5 million total price tag. About something around 1.5 million is usually paid for by the state. Correct, Joe?
In that range, yes.
Yeah. So every year the city ponies up about $3.5 million. Of that, the more than half of it is related to past or prior year pension obligations, times when either the stock market hasn't met the numbers that we were expecting it to, or decades and decades back when we promised these pensions but never fully funded our pension obligation as a city. That is to say that we are still effectively paying a mortgage that was taken out for us in the 50s. and that's driving a good chunk of this cost moving forward. And it is, I mean, it's what percentage of the city's budget, Joe? It's about 7%. Oh,
Liz,
no, excuse me. It's more than that. It's about 12 or 15% of the city's budget.
Liz,
And
excuse me,
yes,
Steve Hagan's trying to get in and he can't. Josh, are you there?
I am here and I see he is in the waiting room and accepted. He's in.
okay, sounds good. So anyway, Joe, this 3.5 million for pensions is what chunk of the city's budget? It's about 12%, maybe even a little more. Joe Pavlak, you out there?
Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah. 13, 15%, somewhere in that range.
Exactly. And of that, funding our actual annual pension cost would only be about 7%. So it's a big chunk of money that we're paying, basically, because past generations may or may not have set aside the money that they were for the benefits they were promising. That said, we are moving forward. I point this out now that Jonathan Williamson is gone. Every year, thinking of Jonathan, we are 80% better than 80% funded on our pensions, which is pretty good statewide. But we have not even touched our other post-employment benefit obligations, our health care, that we're basically funding on an as-needed basis. Correct, Joe?
Yes.
Exactly. And that's the huge number that we will see in this year's audit, that we're not taking a bite out of on an annual basis. That said, we're in a relatively good situation compared to a number of municipalities in the state, and we are meeting at least some of our ongoing pension promises kind of head on, which is a good thing. But it's a tough number to see jump, especially this year. And Joe, when's the next valuation?
Valuations for both the OPEB and the pension are done every 2 years. So 1/1/21 will be the next actuarial valuation for the pension plans.
That's what I was thinking. Do we have any projections on how bad that's going to be?
I don't. One of the things, and looking forward and looking at the amortization payments that are out there, in 2 of our funds, there are some amortization payments that will be falling off the schedule.
Mm-hmm.
So barring no new amortization payments coming in, it could provide some relief.
All right, fantastic. That'd be awesome. Anyway, yep, that's the rundown. There's nothing exciting, and there's not really any decision-making process here. The one thing that we could do every year at budget time is potentially more money into our pensions than we currently, this is our, as it says, minimum municipal obligation. We could always elect to put more into our pension fund and bring ourselves closer to that 100% funded number. But we've never done that in my experience, and I don't think this is going to be the year when we decide to. So while we will vote affirmatively on this and move it to the full body of council, I'm sure it's not really a matter of decision. It is simply what we are obligated to do to meet our obligations to our current and past employees. Any other comments from anyone else on the committee or in the administration?
No.
Okay, then I will take a motion.
I'll make a motion to forward to the full body of council with a positive recommendation.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, moving on to item number 3 on our agenda. Chief Hagan, I hear you've arrived.
Yes, ma'am, I'm here.
Sorry I'm late, but some
Oh, that-
technical difficulty.
You're right on time in terms of getting here to discuss your items. So, the next item on our agenda is a resolution authorizing an amendment change order to resolution number 8987. Chief?
Yes, ma'am. We talked in
Chief
great,
Hagan, you want to take it from here?
yes, can you hear me?
Did we lose him?
I can hear him over here.
Liz, he's talking.
I lost him.
Okay, hang on.
Um,
How about now?
Perfect. Thank you very much, Chief Hagan. That must have been on my end. I apologize. Okay, please.
Okay, we talked in great detail about the change from Ford to Chevy last year, going to the Tahoes. And what we found out was the upfitting costs, which were an estimate in our quote last year of 11,000 per vehicle, came out a little low, and we needed to change amount, and we needed some different wires in them, and antenna cables, and there was some older equipment. One of the antennas was damaged. There were just some issues with an ignition timed output and a few other things. And when you add them all up, they come to $1,779.24 in additional upfitting costs that we need to pay. So that's what the resolution is for. The initial cost of $141,369 would be amended to $143,175.24. A little less than 600 per vehicle in additional upfitting costs. And obviously, now that we know what we need with these vehicles, we expect to continue forward with them with the same dealer, and also with the same upfitter. We know a little bit more about these and don't expect this to happen again. We expect to have a much better idea as to what we'll need going in. Now, welcome any questions.
Questions from members of the committee? Sounds like
None.
no.
None
Oh.
here.
Okay.
No,
Chief, where specifically is the money coming from? What line item in the budget?
Vehicle repairs.
Okay. Yeah, that's all I need to know. This seems pretty cut and dried. And it's certainly understandable to be a little bit off in your estimation. If there are no further questions, I'll take a motion.
I make a motion, we pass this on to a full body of council with a positive recommendation.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thanks, Chief Hagan, for getting on there for just a couple of minutes, but we appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Okay, that brings us to the end of our formal agenda. The final item on the agenda is any related items. Does anyone have anything else they'd like to introduce for the good of the order?
No,
Okay. Mr. Pavlak, we're on track then for the audit here sometime in the next couple of weeks?
We can talk about that.
Okay, sounds good. All right. Thanks very much then, guys, and I will see everyone next week.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Have a good